Welcome to Only People Matter talk series, Ordinary People, Extraordinary Stories. My name is Charlotte Townend and I'm the coach, owner and founder of Only People Matter Limited. Founded in 2018 and inspired by my beautiful grandma, Pamela Frances Townend, who instilled in me the importance of love and kindness towards all people. Her words spoke to me throughout my life and created my soundtrack. You can have all the money in the world, but in the end, only people matter. We are on a mission to spread her message and help people achieve their goals and create a more emotionally connected and accepted society. Ordinary People, Extraordinary Stories is a series that I've created which dedicates a space towards people in the community so that they can tell their stories. We hear from celebrities, makeup artists, fitness gurus, day in, day out. But what about the people that go unnoticed? What about the people that don't have a platform? What about their stories? Now more than ever, we need to unite and make sure that people don't feel alone. You are not alone. We are all in this together. This series is currently being recorded online, but I'm hoping that really soon I'll be in the studio so that I can see people for real. Welcome to this week's episode of Ordinary People, Extraordinary Stories. And my guest this week is Eleni Bradshaw, who I also like to call Wifey. I met her unexpectedly in a Leamington independent shop when I popped in to go and take some artwork in. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so obviously, as Charlie said, my name's Eleni. I have a small business called Thrills of The Emporium. It's now an online website selling interiors and homewares, lots of interesting sort of off-the-wall amazing items for the home. So yeah, I've been going for about 6 years now, and yeah, it's definitely been a roller coaster. Let's say that.
And can you tell us a little bit about the startup of the business and why you actually initially started it up?
Okay, so I think it came from when we at the time bought this house. I had quite a specific idea about what I wanted to do with it, and even though we didn't have much money, because obviously we put it into the house, I knew I wanted like lots of vintage and mid-century stuff. That was where my mindset was then, and I just kept buying and buying and buying all this stuff. And so we had loads in the house. My mum's garage was full. In the end, I had a locker full of all of this stuff, and I was like, right, I'm going to upcycle, and I'm going to like maybe sell some stuff. I didn't really have a clear idea. I had 2 really, really young children at that time when I first decided to start the business. So anyway, I had all this stuff, and I was like, what am I going to do? And I'd sort of talk to people about opening a shop, and wouldn't that be great, like the idea of having a shop with a little cafe, that was the dream. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to do it. Like, what's stopping me? I'm going to do it. Granted, I had 2 small kids, but I had been in teaching before. I'm not a qualified teacher, but I was able to do supply teaching. I'd done that for a long time, thinking I was going to go down the teaching route, yeah, it just kind of evolved quite naturally. I wouldn't say it was a dream that I'd had since childhood to have this shop, although it's secondhand furniture is very much in my childhood, because my dad had a secondhand furniture shop when I was growing up. So auctions and things like that had very much been part of my youth. But yeah, so the decision was made that I was going to start this business and have a shop. And at the time, some people were supportive, some people weren't. I think sort of my family thought, just do it online, just have a home business and do it online. But it wasn't just about having a business for me. It was about it was going to be like a bit of a lifestyle, I suppose. I wanted the shop. I wanted people to be able to come in, be in that environment, get inspired. And so yeah, I went for the shop, but I didn't have any money behind me. I had to go and get a business loan. I remember I went to the Chamber of Commerce in Coventry to get some advice, and she, the woman saw my business plan and she was just like, "This isn't going to work." And I was like, "Oh, okay." She's like, "This isn't a great this isn't a great business." I was like, "Oh, okay." I thought, "Oh, I'm never coming back here again." I don't care what you say. But then I took my business plan. It was a rubbish business plan, but I took it to my bank, HSBC, and I had a meeting with the business manager there. I mean, she literally did not give two hoots about the business plan. Had all these photos in there of like ideas and a bit of a mood board and what I wanted to create. That's all she really cared about. She was like, "This looks amazing. Oh my God, yeah, how much money do you want?" You know, gave me the money. So I started Thrills with £6,000 in the bank. That was what the business loan I had. Found premises in Leamington. I mean, I'd considered Coventry, but Coventry, funnily enough, was really expensive. The council, I didn't feel at the time, were willing to support small independents in the city centre. And so I ended up sort of driving around Leamington, looking at premises that were up for sale, and found mine. And that was it. Yeah, I remember signing the lease and being like, "Oh my God, this is actually happening." It was scary. It was really, really scary. So yeah, we started that business with the vintage furniture that I had sort of collected over that time period. I thought I was going to be upcycling, sanding down furniture, mid-century pieces. I mean, I wasn't very good at it. I don't know what I was thinking, to be honest. But that's where we started. Didn't have any sort of new suppliers. I actually don't know what I was thinking, how I was going to manage it, but in terms of like replacing stock, I mean, it was just a nightmare in those early days getting stock with two young children. I had two under two when we first opened, and I would be driving around the country in my ex-husband's van with two car seats in the front with the babies in, and collecting furniture. It was just ridiculous. So on my days off, when the shop was closed, like one day a week it was closed, that's what I would be doing with my time. And looking back, yeah, it was, I don't know what I was thinking. It was just insane. But yeah, it was definitely, I would say that in terms of planning out what I was going to be doing, I probably didn't plan it that well or really think about what it would look like going forward. It was very much an emotional decision, and this is what I want to do, and very like on a whim almost. But sometimes decisions are like that. Sometimes if you want to follow a dream, sometimes, okay, you could do as much planning as you like, but in the end it is emotional. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I think especially when you've got two young children, quite often then people want to kind of then make something of their own after that experience.
Yeah, I think definitely that was true.
Like I do hear that quite a lot, that like new mums and stuff, you want to redefine yourself, don't you? And it's a nice, having a business, especially a quirky business like this, it's a great way to do that. And also, if it is going to provide an income, then happy days at that point, where you can be there for your, yes, I understand like juggling your children, but how did you manage to juggle your children, kind of from, obviously you were talking about the early days, but has that continued to be difficult? Or
Well, I mean, my mum was literally just a saint. I mean, looking back, it was too much for everybody. So I was in the shop at that point almost 6 days a week. And my mum, the children weren't in school yet, so they were in either nursery or with my mum. And luckily my mum's retired, and that's how I was able to do that. But yeah, in hindsight, that was definitely too much. But at the time, I didn't really see it that way. At the time, I was like, no, I need to focus on the business. I need to be there, because I think when you do have a small little brand like that, people want to see the owner. You know, it becomes such a it's more than just them handing money over and buying an item. It's the whole experience, and they're almost investing in you as a person. So I kept thinking, like, I had to be there. I have to be there.
You spoke about it being a little bit of a balancing act with the kids when it was like a startup. Did that continue on to now, or has things got easier with the children and balancing that?
Yeah, obviously the kids went to school, which made it a little bit easier, but still it was the evenings. It was every Saturday I would be at work. Things are a lot easier now because for various reasons I gave up the shop, decided to go purely online. So things are like just perfect now, much easier. I'm able to be at home all the time now, so I don't feel like I have that juggle. The eternal mum guilt has gone. So yeah, things definitely have changed for the better.
Yeah. And I think regardless, like, of what job you do, there's always going to be that juggle with the children, isn't there? You're not going to get away from that, whether you work Monday to Friday 9 to 5, or whether you work weekends. It's very difficult.
Oh, I mean, certainly during this last 3 months with COVID, it's been really difficult, working and having the children, homeschooling. I'm in the fortunate position that I don't know if you call it fortunate, but me and my ex-husband, me and my children's dad are divorced. So he has been furloughed, which means that he's been able to have the children a lot more during lockdown, making it a little bit easier on me. But I know I have friends who are mums who are not in that position, or both parents are working and the children are, and I know it's just really difficult for them. So yeah, there's always something to juggle, isn't it? It would be lovely if we could all just stay at home and not work until the children are 18 or whatever. But unfortunately, that's just not the reality, is it, for the majority of people?
No, and I think the majority of people wouldn't enjoy that anyway. I think it's nice to have something, it's nice to have something to focus on, isn't it? It's nice to have a life sometimes outside of your children a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, it's nice to keep yourself as an independent person, I think.
Yeah, definitely. But I think mums feel guilty for that all the time.
Absolutely.
And I think if all mums talked about their mum guilt, the guilt would go, because they'd be like, oh, it's not just me that feels like this. Everybody feels like this. This is actually normal. So why do I feel guilty?
Yeah.
But I think everyone just feels, oh, I shouldn't put my career first, or I shouldn't be working so much. I should be at home with the children all the time. The children are suffering. The children are missing out. It's really hard. I do think it's hard to find that balance and not feel guilty as a parent.
Yeah, and like, I've met so many mums who are doing it perfectly, you included in that, but they still give themselves such a hard time. So I think you could literally be the perfect parent, whatever that is, and I still think you would find a reason to, like, give yourself a whack over the head with a stick.
Yeah, it's like now I'm at home with the children, the majority of the time. I can do every school pickup, every school drop off. I'm available on the weekends, which I never did before. And yet now my new guilt is, could I go and get a 9 to 5 job and earn better than I earn now? Are my kids missing out financially because I'm choosing to do the job that I want to do? So maybe that's just my personality, but I think mums will always find something to feel guilty about.
Yeah.
Work, that's just me anyway. Maybe I'm just like hard on myself, but
No, I think like no one tells you when you become a parent that ultimately that comes with a whole bag of guilt for the rest of your life that you're not quite doing enough.
Yeah, absolutely. I 100% agree with that.
So in terms of having the independent business, what were like challenges that you faced during having the shop, or switching from being in the high street to online?
So when I had the shop, it started doing okay. It was bringing in an okay income. It was never amazing, don't get me wrong. I think having a small indie business is really, really difficult. The high street is so tough. I started the website, and that made a huge difference. Then I was invited to go onto a third-party selling platform. That was okay for cash flow, but in terms of how it affected like profit margins, it wasn't great. So I don't know whether to mention the name of the third-party platform, but what I found was with I don't want to go into search engine stuff, but with search engines, if you Google the Thrills of the Emporium, instead of people coming through my website, they would go through the third-party platform, and where they had really high commission, it just meant profit margins dropped. So although turnover was okay, profit margins came down drastically. So I did take the decision to come off that. But in terms of the high street, so while the website was growing, then it went onto the third-party platform, so the website declined. At the same time as that, the high street was declining. The high street was just declining so much. But I thought, previously the website was doing well. We'll come off the third-party platform. We'll focus on the website again. And whatever happens, I'm keeping that shop. I need to be in that shop. That shop is now my life. It's my social life. It's really emotional because I got divorced. I think that shop, outside of being a parent, I think that shop like defined me as a person. So it was hugely emotional having that shop. I met you there. I had so many friends that I'd met through that shop. And so even though I could see the business wasn't working in the format that it was in at that point, I convinced myself I need the shop. One, for personal reasons. Two, because even though the shop isn't making enough money, the website is paying for it, and I need storage. I need to be able to photograph products, and I need to be able to distribute products from somewhere. And I think it looks better to customers who are buying from me that I have a business premises. So I made all these reasons in my head as to why I should keep the shop, even though it wasn't profitable. And if I'm honest, the biggest reason keeping me there was probably my ego. My inner ego, that I needed it, and it fulfilled needs personal to me, which is just really silly because the amount of time that I was putting into it, the effort that I was putting into it, just in the end, it just wasn't worth it. But before Christmas this year, so sales were going down, even on a Saturday, whereas I used to think, oh, it doesn't really, it's okay, whatever happens in the week, happens in the week, but, it's fine, because Saturday will make up for it. Well, that stopped happening. So even Saturdays were getting a bit crap. So before Christmas, I thought my next level of reasoning with myself was, it doesn't matter what happens the rest of the year, as long as as long as Christmas is good, we'll live for Christmas. We'll keep the shop as storage, distribution, and, photography for social media. But as long as it makes money at Christmas, we'll keep the shop. Anyway, 2 weeks before Christmas, supposedly the biggest trading weekend of the year, bar Black Friday. It was just so awful. It was so awful. Like I didn't have a Christmas in the shop this year. It just didn't happen. And I made the decision quite the same way that I made the decision opening the shop. I made the decision like that to close the shop. it was time for me to take all the emotion out of the equation, you know, all the reasons that I'd wanted to keep the shop. I sat there on that Saturday and I thought, I get one Sunday a fortnight as a day with my children, because obviously me and their dad are separated, so every other weekend they'd be with him. Saturdays I was in the shop, so the rest of the week they're at school. I get one Sunday a fortnight. And on this particular Saturday, I sat there and I thought, what am I doing here? I'm sat here all day when I could be with my kids to earn what? To turn over what? To gain what? You know, this shop is just, it's just not working anymore. And it's time away from the kids. And that was my decision made then. It was down to the kids, down to looking at the business realistically. And I straight away just emailed the landlord, the estate agent, and I was like, you know, I'm done. Can't do this anymore. So yeah, that was the end. I should also mention, because I started this story that we were just in vintage and mid-century stuff. Obviously, at the beginning, that was never going to be viable because of accessing new stock. So we did go into the realms of like new stock, reproduction stock. So it was kind of like a bit of a mix between new and old, and that's how I was able to keep, you know, stock levels up. But yeah, that was it. This Christmas decided to get rid of the shop, and it was really emotional. I cried. I cried the day that I handed my notice in, because as I said, that business was, it did define me, I think, after not just after my divorce, but it defined that part of my life. The friendships and the relationships and being part of the community. So yeah, I cried on the Saturday, but on the Sunday I could have skipped down the street with relief. Like, I felt so light having made the decision. And I put it on my social media that day, maybe a few days later, and the response was just incredible. And so I remember somebody commenting and saying, if you feel light after you've made a decision, you know that decision was obviously right. And I thought, yeah, and I really did. I physically felt relieved.
It must be so hard to compete with like the big high street stores. Like, what did you get any grants or anything from the government to like help the independent businesses to be able to stay on the high street? Because even just having your mark on a high street must have been a nightmare. Like
we did get a grant, a bit of some funding to do the market, but that wasn't funding for us, as shops. But in terms of competing against the big high street brands, it's impossible, because as what people don't really realise is, as a small brand, your margins are so small in terms of markups, whereas big brands, their buying power is so great that they buy stuff that much cheaper, they can mark stuff up that much more, and then constantly do sales, and they're still making money. Whereas for a small indie, as soon as they've marked it down, that's their margin more or less gone. You know, which is why small indies can't sale all the time, unless they're going to go down the realm of marking up ridiculously to then sale all the time. Unless they go down that strategy, it becomes really difficult to compete with the high street. But it's not just competing with the high street, you're then competing with people online who don't have premises, who don't have the overheads, who can sell at the like, say, RRP or lower than the RRP. It becomes really, really difficult. So you're like, what is the best strategy here? I can't keep competing against the high street in their constant sales, and I can't compete against people who are selling online for potentially cheaper because they don't have the overheads. So you're then depending on customers being loyalty and just wanting to support their high street, which isn't a that is not a strategy that is sustainable at all.
No.
So yeah,
sorry to interrupt you. Like, the irony of it as well is, like, you know, a few times when I was in the shop, I'd find that people would be asking us for discount or for money off or bartering for money off. Yeah, you wouldn't go into a high street shop and go, I want 20% off or whatever. Whereas you're the ones that really need, you know, you can't do that.
Yeah, exactly. And you would find that a lot. People think that high street, that small indies are charging astronomical prices. We're really not. We're charging I was charging the RRP of a product, and across the board in my industry, suppliers set RRPs, you know, so we can't, you know, undercut, we can't really overinflate the prices. You know, the price is the price, and as soon as we've discounted, that's it. Margins gone. And because our buying power is small, what we buy it for is quite high, you know. So yeah, it is really difficult. It was difficult competing, but I am where I am now, I suppose, you know.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say is, like, obviously then it was an obvious choice to make that transition to online. So how was that transition? Was it easy to do, or, you know, bar selling, obviously giving up the shop, which you've spoken about, what about the actual transition to being online?
So I'd made the decision to shut the shop at the end of January. I'm lucky that the website was doing okay. I was coming off the third-party platform, and I only had about a month and a half of a transition period, let's call it, before lockdown hit. So it's quite difficult to tell, actually, in terms of like my lifestyle, because at first I felt like I did feel like I was missing the social interactions, because, you know, my kids were at school, and I found that, you know, I was at home working all day, and I thought, oh, I'm starting to feel a little bit lonely here, and I'm going to have to make sure I set aside a day to see people and do stuff. But then lockdown hit and everything changed anyway. So it's sort of hard to define the transition period, really, because we're living in a sort of bubble at the moment, aren't we?
We're living in a transition period.
We're living in a transition period in itself, yeah. So, I mean, I'm relatively lucky that the industry I'm in at the moment hasn't been, speaking for myself, sales are down, but not massively down. You know, I'm still trading. You know, there's a lot of small businesses out there who are not able to trade, not able to do anything. So I'm lucky in that way. I think at the beginning of lockdown, I made changes such as only distributing, or, you know, shipping once a week. It was quite difficult with the kids, but yeah, things. I am lucky that things have been okay. It's not to say that the future will be okay. You know what's going to happen with the economy, jobs and stuff. But for the time being, things are all right.
Yeah.
But I'm giving up the shop now feels like the best decision it still feels like the right decision.
Yeah, and that's a nice feeling, isn't it? That after a period of time, you still feel like it's the right decision, because if you started to regret things, but I think in reality, given what's happened this year, you know, you got out at just the right time. It sounds awful for anybody that's still in that situation, but, you know, this year has been a massive curveball and would have probably only made things worse on the high street. I can't even imagine what these high street stores must be going through now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, now that they're allowed to open, I wonder what grants, you know, the government are going to be giving to shops on the high street now. But I was in Leamington yesterday and I had a little mooch around. I didn't really go into many shops, but you could see that they were quiet. So, yeah, it's just so hard to know what the new normal is going to look like and how that is going to impact the high streets. Yeah, I was such an advocate for the high street when I had the shop, and I was very I didn't want to. I kind of looked on competitors who were doing a similar thing from me and just doing it from home. I had this I was a bit negative about those because I thought, where's your risk? Where's your commitment? But now that I'm doing that, I would never take that risk again. You know, it's definitely changed my mindset on running a business. But I'd say that I've gone through it. I've learned. I've had that experience, and I've sort of come through the other side. Would I do things differently? I think.
You read my mind. I was literally about to ask you that.
Yeah, because like I said at the beginning, at the time when I was starting the business, you know, family members had said to me, why don't you just do it online? If I was going to start the business from scratch now, not knowing everything that I know, would I go down the shop route? No, I would have done much more research at the beginning, and I possibly wouldn't have opened the shop. As I said, the majority of my website traffic does come through my social media. I've seen new similar businesses to mine operating purely through social media, and they're doing, from what I can see, doing really well without ever having had premises. So if I'd known that 6 years ago, I might have gone down that route.
Well, I guess at that time as well, you didn't have you've got a really big social media following as well, and I think if you don't have that initially as well, then to go online might just seem like such a minefield. You know, how am I ever going to compete with the bigger people online as well?
Yeah, and I think that's learning though, isn't it? And at the time, I mean, I didn't even have Instagram when I opened. I wasn't involved in the sort of interiors community on Instagram, so it would have felt I wouldn't have known where to start. Whereas I think that small interiors businesses that have started since, who already, because they've been showcasing their homes, they're already part of the community on Instagram, the interiors community. They've already got their foot in the door to start a little business. Whereas when I started that just wasn't there when I started my business, you know? I wasn't aware of it when I started my business. My business, to be honest, when I started, it wasn't even about a website. It was purely about having a shop.
And I think hindsight's a great thing, isn't it? But at the time, at that point, that was the right thing for you to do. And had you have not done that, you might have always in the back of your head then wondered, oh, what would it be like to have a shop? So you know, like, you don't know, do you?
I've got a friend who runs a business, and hers is online, and they would quite like to have a shop, you know. And I think maybe if you started off online and never had premises, you might have a dream that one day you could have a shop and it would be amazing, you know, whereas I started with a shop and went online. So I don't know. I mean, there are obviously in Leamington, we've still got interior shops surviving, you know, and hopefully doing okay.
And I think it's about being realistic, isn't it, as well, that it will be extremely hard work and you will have to put in the time and the energy, and it's not going to be like, I'm going to open a shop and it's going to run itself. You're going to be being the person that needs to be there 6 days a week. And when you're not working, you're ordering stock or you're doing other things. And I think although you have that online, you haven't got the overheads for premises maybe. But it's not, like you say, it's not to say it won't work or that you shouldn't do it. It's just to say that you've got to be, well, I would imagine you've got to be extremely committed to that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So ending on a bit more of a positive note, what things came out of it that were really good, and what were the accomplishments that you feel you achieved during this last 6 years having your independent shop?
Okay, so I think I have made really amazing friendships through having that shop, obviously including yours. I did really enjoy being part of the community with Debbie from Hush Next Door. Obviously, I'm a co-founder of the Covent Garden Quarter, which was the markets that we created, which was a huge accomplishment at the time. It took a lot of work, and it was amazing. I'm sad to not be part of that anymore, but you know, I feel like that was a bit of my legacy. You know, I feel proud that I've created this brand. I feel proud that I've created a business that allows me to be financially independent. Yeah, and now I'm proud that I've got a business that, although it started its roots in a shop, I'm proud that I have a business that enables me to have such a good work-life balance.
Definitely.
You know, and for all the mums out there that want that, you know, if you're passionate about something and you think you can make a business out of it, I would say try. Just try it. You know, if it fails, if it doesn't work, you know, try something else. But if that's the kind of life you want, just, you know, give it a go, because I'm really happy with the way things are now, I must say.
Yeah. And, you know, like, I was always super, like, you know, name dropping, like a bit like proud. I've always been like, yeah, that's my friend's shop, you know, like, and you should have been so proud, because the window displays were always awesome. The shop always looked great. Like, people would just come in, just have a look, you know, just to see. And you should be so proud of that.
Yeah, and that was part of the ego in not letting the shop go as well, is because it people would come in and be like, this is amazing, oh my god, I love your shop, you're living the dream. I'd be like, I'm not living the dream. I don't have a pension, you know, it's not guaranteed salary. But when people came in and would just be like, oh my god, like, this is just, it just made me feel great, you know. It made me feel, it was a special little shop, you know. And I do go back over Instagram and think, oh my god, we're so lucky to have that. But already it's been 6 months, but it feels like another life.
But it's nice that you've had that experience as well. It creates a bit of texture to it, rather than it just being, I just set up online. It's like, no, you've actually been on this mad whirlwind journey with your business. And it's, you know, like, it gives it some texture moving forward as well, so that it's a backstory, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you so much for joining us today, and it's been so nice to hear about the shop, and we will be doing everything we can to support you and other small independent businesses online and on the high street, obviously. So yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, no, that's great. And can I just say one thing? If you and your viewers can shop independently, put the money back into your community, whether that's on the high street, or if you can find independent businesses online, small ones, you know, if you can shop with them rather than big high street.
Yeah, what was the hashtag that you said earlier about the UK Independence Day?
I think it's hashtag UK Indie Day.
Okay.
You can always find small businesses hashtag small business, hashtag small indie business. Go through Instagram, go to Etsy, go directly, find the retailer, find the small business, and go direct to them. Truva is a good one to find small independent businesses. But go direct to the business. That's all I'd say, is go direct to the business, because these businesses pay third-party platforms a lot of commission. But yeah, if you can find small businesses, use them.
Thank you so much, and I will speak to you very soon. We want to keep updated with all your progress, obviously. We need to support independent businesses up and down the UK, especially during these times. So my challenge is find 3 independent businesses who you can like and support online. Start with @Thrills of The Emporium on Instagram. Thank you, and only people matter.